3 plane tickets had been purchased with my credit card in the middle of the night. The moment I turned on my phone in the morning, 3 bank notifications were lined up on the screen. The numbers were stacked vertically. It looked as if they had been piled up without my permission while I was asleep. I set down my coffee. The sound of the cup hitting the table was too quiet. It lingered in my ears unnervingly. Same airline. Same amount. 3 times. The transaction time was 2:17 a.m. My auditor's instinct kicked in. I pushed my emotions aside and called up the proper procedures. I opened the transaction details and took screenshots. My fingers were trembling slightly. They were my fingers, but they felt like they belonged to someone else. Next, I opened Gmail. My password was rejected. Password changed 1 hour ago. A chill ran down the back of my throat. I looked at the recovery email address displayed on the screen, and I sank deeper into my chair. p.rivera.mom@aol.com. It was my mother's old email address. For the first time, a small question floated to the back of my mind. Am I being treated as if I had made a promise? Moments later, I would report this to the bank as fraud and stop my family's trip. Should I have just paid for it in silence? Was my action wrong? My name is Maya. I'm 29 years old. I work at an audit firm in the state capital. I'm single, and I don't have children. I thought I had a very ordinary family structure. My parents and 1 older brother. My father is self-employed, and my mother is a housewife. My brother moved out a few years ago and now lives in another state. I earn the most money in the family. I have never told anyone that. I have never been asked either. I was simply the role called upon when money was needed. I finished paying off my student loans 3 years ago. My car is used, my apartment is small, and I don't live extravagantly. I don't recall ever giving my family details about my savings or my high credit limit. At least, I didn't think I had. The first thing I did was call the credit card company. To keep my voice from shaking, I tidied up my desk, the position of the coaster, the angle of the mug handle. Aligning the details helped smooth out the chaos in my head just a little. I've always gotten through things this way. This is Maya Rivera. I'd like to report unauthorized usage. The operator's questions were matter of fact, which helped. Amount, merchant time. I answered with only the facts. I was grateful for a conversation that left no room for emotion. Do you have any recollection of these charges? No, I was asleep. It's possible a third party accessed your card information. We will proceed with an investigation. But do you have any idea who the perpetrator might be? I held my breath for a beat. I felt at the moment I said, I have an idea. The colors of the world would change. The word family felt heavier than usual. Yes, I do. It's my family. The temperature of the operator's voice shifted slightly. I am sorry to hear that. If the perpetrator can be identified, a police report may be required to protect your account. Do you wish to proceed? Required. Police report. Mom. These words stripped away the softness from my daily life. I practiced swallowing without making a sound before I spoke. Please proceed. As soon as I hung up, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. I could read the content just from the notification preview. Thank you for the gift of our family's dream trip. You are so kind. Love you. Kind looked like just another word for paying. I didn't reply. First, I saved the record. It was a nasty habit I picked up from auditing work, even though I hated it. That habit was saving me now. I remembered the group chat my mother created last week. Rivera Summer Retreat 2026. The speed at which she named it matched the speed of her decisions. It was as if the participation and the cost had been decided from the very beginning. I had muted that chat. When I muted it, I felt a twinge of guilt. My mother calls not participating in family discussions cold. But before I feel cold, I feel tired. 2 days later, on Zoom, the family on the screen was already talking about Maui. Photos of the ocean, hotel options, tours. My mother was laughing. While laughing, she tossed out a number. The flight is about $860 per person. Those who can't pay will sadly have to stay home. Her tone was shaped like kindness. She wore a face that said, I'm telling you the reality for your own good. My auditor's brain automatically deconstructed the logic of the room. If talking about leaving behind those who can't pay is called family bonding, then membership in this family is determined by the ability to pay. My mother looked at me then. Her aim was precise, even through the camera. Maya, you're single, and you don't have kids. You have plenty of room, right? Single. No kids. To her, that doesn't mean freedom. It means vacancy. And vacancies are meant to be filled. They are filled with expectations and invoices. Outside the frame of the camera, I grip my pen tighter. Don't get angry. If I get angry, the topic will switch. I have always been dragged down that path. So, I kept my words short. I'm not paying. Later, I sent a direct message to my mother. I will not pay for anyone's share. Her reply came immediately. You must have forgotten again. You promised Dad at Thanksgiving. I wasn't at Thanksgiving last year. I was in another state for work. My mother knows that. She knows it, and she says it anyway. She tries to create a hole in my memory. At that point, I was still trying to dismiss it as a misunderstanding. My mother is pushy, but not malicious. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to keep no malice as the final conclusion I held about my family. But the notification this morning did not look like a misunderstanding. The purchase time was chosen for when I was asleep. All 3 tickets were business class. The $860 figure she mentioned was a number meant for others to hear. It wasn't the number for me. For me, she hit the credit limit. I proceeded with recovering my Gmail. Password reset. Recovery options. My mother's old email address. The moment I saw it, a short sentence floated into my mind. What is not refused is quietly recorded as consent. I don't know the full meaning. I was just left with a nasty premonition that my silence up, until now, had been converted into permission by someone else. In the recovered inbox, there were 3 confirmation emails for plane tickets. They were all marked as read. My hands hadn't touched them. Destination: Maui. Passenger names: Dad, Mom, Brother. Not me. I was processed not as a person going on the trip, but as the person buying the trip. Next, I listed out the recovery options. Credit card portals, Amazon, the bank, everywhere. My mother's AOL address remained as a backup. I didn't remember registering it. There was a time when my mother said, "I'll help you with your college paperwork," and handled my account beside me. Under the guise of kindness, the settings quietly remained. I scrolled back through my billing statements. There were no large amounts. Conversely, that was scary. There were small numbers dotted here and there. $14.99 at a supermarket I don't know. $23.45 at a gas station I don't visit. All of them were amounts that fit into the blind spots of my attention. Test runs. Operation checks. Intrusions small enough not to break my life. My phone buzzed again. A short text from my father. "Fix this by tomorrow. Mom is crying." I turned my screen face down. Dad is always in charge of fear. Mom handles guilt. There is a division of labor. Since I was a child, I have adjusted my emotions to deal with the 2 of them. I got so good at adjusting that, before I knew it, adjusting became my job. That night, I gave up on sleep. Instead, I made a spreadsheet. Dates, access history, recovery addresses, transaction details. My work habits turned into a form of self-defense. Instead of using tears, I gathered data. I thought I was being cold, but without that coldness, I would break. Just past midnight, an email from my mother to a relative was forwarded to me. My aunt had accidentally sent the whole thread. The surface message was a request for prayers. Maya is confused about helping with the family trip, and we might not get the tickets. Please pray for us. The word confused was used as a pronoun for my personality. My resistance becomes a symptom of an illness. Below that, there was the real conversation. A short exchange between Mom and Dad. "We have to book fast. The prices are going up. The credit limit should be fine. She's been doing overtime for 2 years. She's earning. Her credit is high. It's fine. If it goes through, she won't make a fuss. She hates conflict. Family duty is her weak point." I pulled away from my desk slightly. I thought I would feel nauseous, but I didn't. Instead, deep in my chest, something hardened. It wasn't pain. It was immobility. The sensation of something setting into place. With all this information, only one doubt remained. Is my mother doing this out of malice? Or in her mind, is it for the family? If it's the latter, am I refusing to do something for the family? I left the question for myself. Where is the possibility that I am in the wrong? When I was told that I was single and had plenty of room, I didn't explain. I didn't mention my loans or the purpose of my savings. I want to believe that if I had spoken, they might have understood. But that assumption differs from reality. People who understand don't buy tickets while you sleep. The next morning, a notification came from the bank. "We have contacted the airline regarding suspected fraud. Shortly after, the tickets were canceled. Simultaneously, the notifications from my family exploded. Mom, dad, relatives, group chats, direct messages, a barrage. What did you do? Call me right now. I already told everyone. Are you trying to embarrass us? Are you trying to destroy this family? I placed my phone on the desk. My hands were no longer shaking. Instead, I made different preparations. Outside the front door, the sound of a car stopped. It was parked roughly. My father's truck. Before the rhythm of pounding on the door could start, I put my phone in my pocket and launched the voice recording app. What I am about to do is not a conversation to win. It is not evidence to escape. It is a record to measure my own line. The door rang. 3 times. A pause. 3 times. I steadied my breathing and placed my hand on the doorknob. The doorknob felt lighter than I expected. I didn't turn it yet, just testing the sensation in my fingertips. The coldness of the metal kept me from rushing my judgment. Just like in an audit, I lined up the procedures in my head. If I got the order wrong, I wouldn't be able to stay myself. The recording was running. In my pocket, time was quietly stacking up. Did I actually promise something? That question returned. This time, it wasn't small like it was in the morning. The presence on the other side of the door added weight to the question. Promise. Family. Duty. My mother would say, for the family. My father would say, don't cause trouble. My brother would probably laugh and say, you're overreacting. In their minds, this might not be a crime, but an adjustment. Just circulating the family wallet among family. That kind of logic. But they bought them while I slept. 3 tickets. None for me. That part remains unchanged, no matter how they phrase it. The words, for the family, blur who the family is actually for. In that ambiguity, I was always the one made small. I have returned to this house many times. Every time I visited, my mother made a face of joy at my growth. My father said, you've become important. My brother lightly said, that helps. The words were all shaped like compliments, but compliments were often handed over with a role assignment attached. If there are people being helped, there must be a helper. That division of labor had somehow become fixed. I hated being called cold. I didn't want to be a cold person. So I postponed explaining. I laughed off my discomfort. Instead of looking for reasons to refuse, I arranged reasons not to refuse. My silence was a tactic to avoid making waves. Maybe that tactic was permission to someone else. I had tried not to think about the meaning of those words for a long time. I don't remember giving permission. I don't intend to have agreed. But I also have very few memories of refusing. I always chose the path that didn't disrupt the room, the path that didn't prolong the conversation, the path that didn't disappoint them, the path where I said, I'll think about it later, and then forgot. Maybe the words I didn't choose had piled up. Not saying I didn't like it, not saying I was troubled, not writing that it was impossible. In my mind, those were on hold, but in their minds, they were surely processed as something close to approval. Silence isn't blank space. It is given meaning by someone else's judgment. When I thought about that, the quietness of my past became a little scary. I repeated the short sentence that came to mind this morning. At first, I didn't understand the meaning. Now I understand a little. Evidence isn't just paper and numbers. The time spent saying nothing becomes an argument for the other side. See, you didn't say you hated it. So, I thought it was fine. If told that, I would start explaining. I would choose words not to hurt their feelings. While choosing, the point would shift. Even though it shifts, I would chase it. I have a habit of chasing. In auditing, that's a strength. But in front of family, it becomes a weakness. I know only one way to not show weakness. Keep it short. Stick to the facts. Do not align my emotions with theirs. What is not refused is quietly recorded as consent. That is why I started the recording. It wasn't to suspect someone, but preparation so I wouldn't suspect myself. It wasn't to punish them. It was to protect my own words. Today, I am testing myself to see if I can avoid being swallowed by their words. Before drawing the line, I need to measure where the line is. From the other side of the door, I heard shoes scuffing the floor. Impatient stomping. My father hates waiting. When made to wait, it becomes easier for him to justify his anger. Anger is convenient. It silences the other person. I inhaled. I realized the smell of coffee was gone. I couldn't count exactly how many hours had passed since morning. Today, I prioritized procedure over emotion. Perhaps that was just my way of living. Still, the question remained. Where is the possibility that I am the bad one? Did I show my family my credit limit? Did I build a track record of not refusing? Did I accept their kindness? When Mom said she would help with the paperwork years ago, I handed her my phone. When Dad said, because we're family, I didn't argue. Did each of those things lead to the 3 tickets today? If so, it means I opened the door myself. But I also think that's wrong. I wasn't the one who opened the door. I wasn't the one who chose the time I was sleeping to turn the key without permission. Today, I need to put that difference into words. On the other side of the door, my father exhaled loudly. It was an exaggerated sound, like a signal. What comes next is a command. I put strength into my fingertips. I needed to make sure that opening the door itself didn't become consent. I turned the knob. When I opened the door, my father was standing right there. Work clothes. The smell of engine oil. One hand was half clenched into a fist, the other shoved in his pocket. I'm coming in. Without waiting for permission, he took off his shoes and stepped up. My reply was left behind in the entryway. When he reached the living room, he stood there and looked around. The tidy desk, the closed laptop, the empty mug in the sink. What did you do? It was shaped like a question, but the content wasn't for confirmation. It was words meant to determine where the blame lay. I closed the front door and locked it. At that sound, my father's gaze returned to me. You canceled the tickets, didn't you? Yes, I answered shortly. My father clicked his tongue. Mom is crying. That was his first trump card. Crying. Since long ago. The word that worked best on me. I kept my hand on the back of the sofa and didn't sit down. Standing made it easier to keep the conversation short. It was unauthorized usage. When I said that, my father went silent for a split second. Then, he sighed. It's a family matter. It is my card. That's why I'm saying it's family. The conversation always travels down the same road. A path that forces ownership and relationship into the same word. My father took his smartphone out of his pocket. He connected a call from my mother on speaker. Maya? My mother's voice was trembling slightly. Not enough to be theatrical, but it was a tone I was used to hearing. Why would you do something like this? I didn't answer. I was conscious that the recording was running. Talk to Dad. I just don't know what to do anymore. My mother often uses the phrase, I don't know, usually when she has actually decided everything already. My father looked at me. Explain yourself. I took a deep breath. While I was sleeping, 3 tickets were bought with my card. My Gmail was also changed. Mom's email address was left as the recovery contact. My father frowned. So what? That is fraud. When I said it clearly, the air in the room grew a little heavier. My mother's voice quickened on the other end of the phone. I didn't mean it like that. I heard the prices were going up, and I thought we had to hurry. That doesn't become a reason to use someone else's card without permission. I was surprised at how quiet my own voice was. My father interjected. It's family money. It is in my name. I'm not talking about names. My father's voice grew a little stronger. You're earning. Mom doesn't have extra money right now. Your brother is tight, too. Family helps each other. Helps each other. The moment those words came out, I felt a little relieved, because the point of contention became clear. If we are helping each other, we discuss it. When I said that, my father fell silent. My mother spoke after a brief pause. Maya, if you didn't want to, I wish you had said so from the start. With that phrasing, the position of responsibility shifted back to my side. I didn't answer immediately. I said I wouldn't pay, but you promised. My mother's voice grew slightly stronger. At Thanksgiving. I shook my head. I was in another state that day. But you said something. Vague memories. Words that can't be proven. My father tapped the table lightly. Enough of this. Police fraud. You're exaggerating. The bank decided it was necessary. My father's eyes narrowed. Did you report it? Yes. With that one word, the atmosphere in the room changed completely. My mother's voice clearly wavered. If you do that, it will hurt the family. For the first time, I chose my words carefully. The family is already hurt. No one replied immediately. Silence lasted for a few seconds. My father exhaled slowly. So, what do you want to do? It was shaped like a question, but in reality, it was a demand for retraction. I remembered the recording. This conversation isn't meant to judge anyone. It is to confirm whether I can remain myself. From now on, please do not touch my accounts at all. Are you suspecting your mother? This is a conversation about boundaries. When I spoke that word, the hardness deep in my chest unraveled just a little. My father stared at me and didn't move for a while. My mother's voice said quietly, "But we are family." I didn't reply to those words right away because I realized, almost too late, just how conveniently the word family was being used. Even if we are family, the names on the accounts are separate. When I said only that, my father looked down. He probably didn't know what to say next either. In that silence, I became sure of one thing. We are not going back to where we were. The door had closed not on the outside, but on the inside. My father remained motionless, looking at me for a while. I haven't mentioned the recording yet. I haven't brought out everything. The bank's response. The possibility of police involvement. Even so, the atmosphere had reached a point of no return. My father slowly sat down on the sofa. The momentum he had earlier was chipped away. "So, what should we have done?" It wasn't an accusatory tone. It was a voice closer to confusion. My mother's voice came quietly from the phone. "Maya, please. I didn't mean to do harm." I didn't rush my reply. If I rush, I'm always pulled back into their arena. I heard the prices were rising. I really had to hurry. "So you bought them without asking?" My mother re-chose her words. "I thought it would be fine since it was you." With that one phrase, I understood everything. Fine. Not right. Not necessary. Not permitted. Fine. Fine as inconvenient. I nodded slightly. "That is not my consent." My father immediately cut in. "Don't get into the details. It's for the family, isn't it?" For the family. The moment those words came out, I began the calculations in my mind that I had been avoiding for so long. How much have I paid until now? Tuition. Medical bills. Car's insurance. Sudden expenses for relatives. Startup funds for my brother. Amounts that disappeared without leaving a trace on any statement. I never asked for a receipt. I never wrote a contract. I never said, "Pay me back." My father calls that for the family. "If it's for the family, you discuss it," I said. "You don't do it without permission." My mother's voice sounded slightly irritated. "But you always helped us before." "Only when I was asked." My father frowned. "What's the difference?" "You did this while I was sleeping." That was the one thing I couldn't concede. I held down the phone on the desk with my finger. The recording was still running. "I have the right to choose whether or not to pay." "We let you choose, didn't we?" My father's voice grew a little stronger again. "If you didn't want to, you should have just said you hated it." When I heard those words, for the first time, I laughed a little. A short laugh, like air escaping. "I did say it." My father fell silent. "On Zoom. In direct messages. I said I wouldn't pay for anyone." My mother retorted immediately. "But you didn't refuse clearly." "I did refuse. But you didn't give a reason." "Is a reason necessary?" For a moment, the conversation stopped. I continued. "I don't need a reason to say no." Those words were a little surprising even to me. Words I had never spoken before until now. My father slowly shook his head. "Can a family function with logic like that?" I answered quietly. "If it doesn't function, then it's not a family. It's just a system." On the other end of the phone, my mother gasped. "Maya, you're too cold." Cold. I have feared that evaluation for a long time, but now it felt a little different. What is cold is using the card of someone who is asleep. My father looked straight at me. "Are you seriously planning to tell the police?" "The bank said it was necessary." "Cancel it." "I can't." "Are you going to destroy this family?" Those words were the strongest pressure applied here. I thought for a moment. Destroy the family. Broken. Destroyed. Maybe it was already broken from before. I just hadn't noticed. The one who destroyed the family is the person who used the card. No one argued back immediately. The silence stretched long. My mother's voice sounded close to tears. But it was for the family. When I heard those words, I finally saw the shape of my mother's logic clearly. The phrase, "for the family," is magic that lets no one take responsibility. It doesn't say who it is for. It doesn't say who decided it. Only who pays is decided from the start. I spoke slowly. "Don't use the phrase, 'for the family,' to skip over my consent." My mother fell silent. My father said nothing either. I continued. "I don't want to see you." That was the truth. "But from now on, please do not touch my accounts at all. Any payment without consultation will be processed as fraud." My father's face distorted slightly for the first time. "You'd go that far?" "It is a boundary," I said clearly. "This is my line." The moment I spoke those words, I felt the hardness deep in my chest visibly crumble. I didn't feel like I won. I didn't feel a sense of justice. I just finally understood my position. My mother's voice said quietly, "I didn't intend to." I know. I didn't interrupt her, but I continued. "But even if you didn't intend to, what you did doesn't disappear." With that one statement, my mother went completely silent. My father exhaled a long breath and stood up. "I'm going home today." It wasn't a command. It was a voice closer to retreat. On his way to the door, my father looked back once. "You've changed." I thought a little before answering. "I haven't changed. I've returned." My father said nothing and put on his shoes. The sound of the door closing was quieter than I expected. I stood there for a while without moving. I stopped the recording. I checked the time. 20 minutes. In just 20 minutes, the shape of my family changed slightly. Whether that is good or bad, I haven't decided yet. The only thing that is clear is that it will never go back to the same shape again. After my father left, the room was surprisingly quiet. I could hear the ticking of the clock for the first time in a while. Only the smell of cold coffee remained. I checked the lock on the front door twice, put on the chain, and then sat on the floor. I kept my hands on my knees and did nothing for a while. Just moments ago, there were voices in this room. Voices calling my name. Voices blaming me. Voices pretending to be right. Now, they were all gone. I tried to stand up but couldn't move immediately. It wasn't that my legs were weak. I just didn't know where to go. Where was the place in this house where I could stand safely? The living room. The kitchen. The hallway. I felt like the remnants of those voices were stuck to every place. I lowered my gaze to the carpet and counted the frayed threads one by one. If I didn't do meaningless tasks, my mind felt like it would overtake reality. I counted my breaths, waited for my heartbeat, and finally stood up. I wasn't broken, but I didn't think things would go back to how they were. I exhaled slowly, as if checking the sound of my own breath. My heart was still beating fast, but I didn't feel like I was going to break. No part of my body was numb. No tears came. There was only the sensation of having returned to reality. I stopped the recording app. The save confirmation sound beeped quietly. I didn't feel like I had won. I didn't feel like I had lost. I just had the realization that something had ended. I opened my laptop and reviewed all the settings for my bank and credit cards. I deleted recovery email addresses, added two-factor authentication, and erased the history of old devices. The history displayed on the account management screen contained several pasts I didn't know about. Dates accessed, changed settings, registered backup destinations. The traces of time I had thought of as trust remained exactly as they were. I erased them one by one. Delete, change, confirm, save. Every time I opened a settings screen, I felt like I was rereading my past line by line. When was this device registered? Who entered this email? Did I really decide the answer to this security question myself? The boundary between kindness and control was surprisingly ambiguous in the records. I remembered the things I forgave without checking because we're family. Days I was rushing. Nights I was tired. Settings that were a hassle. Every single one of those things created the current situation. For the first time, I felt the sensation of my life returning to my management. That sensation was closer to a quiet responsibility than liberation. Not riding on someone else's judgment. Not following someone else's expectations. The weight of deciding everything myself. If I make a mistake, I can't blame anyone. If I choose again, no one will praise me. I just receive it as my own result. Yet, strangely, there was no fear. The certainty of protecting it myself seemed much quieter and much stronger to me now than the safety of being protected by someone else. Drawing a line doesn't mean pushing someone away. It was then that I understood for the first time that it means not letting anyone decide my place without my permission anymore. On a screen no one can see, without asking anyone for permission. I am drawing a line, consulting no one, explaining to no one, just quietly proceeding with the work. I realized my hands were moving just like they do at work, and I smiled bitterly. I really am a person who chooses procedure over emotion in situations like this. I stopped my hands. The light of the screen illuminated the dry skin of my fingertips in white. Delete, change, confirm, save. I felt that mixed within that repetition were the times I pretended not to understand. The time I said nothing. The past where I paid without speaking. The dissatisfaction I swallowed without a word. Those might have been treated as proof convenient for someone else. The moment I chose silence, the other person might have received permission. The next day, I left the relatives group chat. My mother's Rivera Summer Retreat 2026 had already been recreated under someone else's name. My name wasn't there. It was gone from the participant list. Instead, my brother's wife's name was there. Seeing that, I felt a little relieved. Even if I leave, the family system keeps moving. Someone takes my place, and someone pays. I just got off that cycle. One message arrived from my mother 3 days later. I didn't intend to blame you. It was just for the family. I read that sentence again and didn't reply. I left my mother's words on the screen and thought for a while. Maybe she really doesn't think she did anything bad. In her mind, maybe this wasn't a consultation, but logistics, family trip, filial piety, consideration for my brother. None of those can be called mistakes outright. If I hadn't refused, if I had paid in silence, if I had laughed and said, "Because we're family," this event wouldn't have become a problem. I am the one who made it a problem. Thinking that makes my chest feel a little heavy. Maybe there was a choice to protect the relationship rather than being right, but that assumption doesn't quite mesh with reality. People who understand don't buy tickets in the middle of the night. People who consult don't rewrite recovery addresses. That gap could simply not be filled. The words "didn't intend to blame" do not erase the fact that she blamed me. The reason, for the family, does not become an indulgence to cross boundaries. Still, I couldn't fully decide that my mother was a villain. She might genuinely believe it's for the family. My father might have genuinely been trying to protect us. My brother might have just chosen the easy way by pretending not to notice. The possibility that I am wrong still remains. If I had explained sooner, if I had refused more clearly, if I had shown more emotion, there is plenty of room to think that way. But there is one fact that just won't disappear. The plane tickets bought while I slept were an action, not an explanation. The fact that my mother's address remained as the recovery contact was not a coincidence. The words "limit is fine" and "family duty is her weak point" were not misunderstandings. I didn't fight. I haven't punished anyone. I don't think I destroyed the family. I simply drew a line on my account, my time, and my silence. 6 months have passed since then, and contact with my family has decreased. My mother still sends photos. The dinner table, travel destinations, family gatherings. My seat isn't there. Seeing that, before I felt sad, I felt a little relieved. Not being invited arrives not as rejection, but in a form closer to consideration. My father sends only short updates occasionally. Health, work, weather. There are no instructions, no amounts, no requests. Birthday messages come. Status updates come. But money is no longer mentioned. There are no consultations about payments. I am not invited to travel plans. I decided to think of this not as rejection, but as the result of the boundary. Not getting too close, but not cutting them off completely. Leaving the conversation open while keeping the line drawn. That was the form least likely to break for me. I turned my screen face down. I won't write a reply. I won't let the time I didn't refuse be counted for someone else's convenience anymore. Deciding that, I flipped my phone over. Notifications were quiet. That silence is no longer scary. Was I really right? I stepped the card without telling my family, consulted the police, and distanced myself. Was I too cold? Or was drawing a line my only choice? If you were in the same position, would you pay in silence? Or would you stop it? Was my action wrong?